There are 4 ways you can study with us: the weekly podcasts, Astro Library, our multimedia course segments, and of course certification with us as an evolutionary astrologer. Here's the details of the Astro Library. It's divided into 3 different sections of material that we have accumulated over the last 12 years with various evolutionary astrologers across planet Earth. You can subscribe for 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, and monthly recurring. Here's our multimedia course. We currently offer 3 segments. DVDs, which are now in segment 1 and 2, streamlined in the students' area. Free monthly classes, segments 1 and 2, JWFG transcript, Facebook forum, and 250 hours of audio files. If you are not a student of either segment 1 or segment 2, you can contact us and ask for a free sample actual class that we have taught. We started teaching the webinar classes in January of 2014 for both segments 1 and 2. So here we are moving into tonight's material, Jupiter and Leo Part 2, transiting through the 12 houses. Just briefly, a little recap on the archetypes of Jupiter and Leo. Number 1, it's going to be expanding our ability to perceive universal source, God, Goddess, and doing that through finding inner love first, that then is reflected outwardly. Jupiter in Leo is going to work through recovering our inner wounded child, as well as evolving our own parenting techniques, lessons with our parents. It's going to have us addressing karma with children individually and collectively. That includes our bio kids, our karma kids, our step kids, all kinds of children. Jupiter in Leo is going to be about the maturation in love process and learning how to love on deep mutual levels of acknowledgement versus the distortions of Leo with trauma, drama, and neediness, and all the attention grabbing. Jupiter in Leo is going to have us recognizing that every soul on planet Earth is special and unique, and every soul on planet Earth has a creative principle to fulfill as a channel for source energy. We're going to have to deal with that sense of ego with Leo, learning to fully express ourselves and learning to acknowledge others if we are on that over egotistical side of Leo. And of course, we're all going to be revisiting, evolving our creativity and working through our karma around creativity in all of its many various forms. The starving artist syndrome is quite a common language with EA. We have to go to the Aquarian polarity and recognize we must fulfill our creativity must fulfill a societal need. Some of us are the fear of creativity, performance anxieties, and it's recognizing Leo and Virgo following that there is perfection here. We're on the path to perfection, and it's moving through creativity and doing the best we can do. And of course, that Leonian need to be acknowledged through creativity, to be acknowledged through love. It's really recognizing that that acknowledgement needs to come from universal source first. I will, my will, divine will. And one of the things about Jupiter is that archetype of psychological compensation, which then has us putting on all kinds of masks and behaviors that are not really our authentic self. And so Jupiter in Leo is about learning who we really are and honoring that and walking our talk, standing in our own truth as best as we can receive it. I just had one slide on distortions. There can be many. We'll go through those through the 12 houses. Again, we have to move through all of that outer egotistical behavior and dramas that really are hiding the insecurity of the ego underneath. This is playing out all on a collective level as much as it is individually. Jupiter and Leo will see us looking at sexual scandals and excess, religious scandals and excess, and of course it can expand that social elitism of the haves and have-nots that we have been noticing through the transit of Pluto in Capricorn. As we had spoke last night, one of the things that will be happening with this Jupiter and Leo transit is in September, February, and June of this coming year, we will have Jupiter in a yod aspect in orb with Pluto in Capricorn and Chiron in Pisces. And so I just drew it up in 0 degrees Aries houses to let you see the symbol of the yod. Chiron has a waxing sextile to Pluto, Jupiter waxing in conjunct to Chiron, waning in conjunct to Pluto. Brief slide for you here. Because of that waxing sextile between Chiron and Pluto, we have opportunities to heal, or we could choose to remain stuck in all our woundedness and feel that there's nothing we can do. The Jupiter waxing in conjunct to Chiron is going to show us that necessary inner reflection of how we need to change. And Jupiter in Leo then is about finding that courage to make those changes, to move past the Chiron in Pisces woundings that are so very reflective of these patriarchal times. Jupiter's waning in conjunct to Pluto in Capricorn is going to be the outer changes that are going to be necessary to make the outer adjustments. So we are going to, on an individual and collective level, find people in our world who will be all too happy to tell us what we need to do to change. We will want to do the same things to them. It's going to lead us to recognize that we've got to have an individual self-responsibility and a collective social responsibility through Jupiter and Leo. So all of this comes down to how do we want to evolve, grow, expand with Jupiter and Leo. I'm going to move right into the 12 houses here. Before I do, any clarifications from for those of you who heard yesterday's class, anything that I've not discussed, any comments, questions, any subject you'd like me to expand upon or clarify? As I'm waiting to see if anybody has any questions on the board, as I was reviewing today, a couple of things that popped into me. You know, Jupiter and Leo, another key word for that can be magnetism. It can just be very magnetic energy that again can be distorted to have power over or manipulate or be center of attention. But it can also be expressed in a quite healthy way where that magnetism of life force and energy and creativity can just draw people towards us, and we can be an example of how to be a creative life force on the planet. And we can also be an example of how to be a leader on the planet. Leadership can also be Jupiter and Leo, and as well can be distorted or naturally expressed. So one of the things that I decided that I would do as I work through these 12 houses, again, this is not an inclusive list. I just tried to start jotting down some key words that could work for discussions as we move through the zodiac. And so I divided these keywords into this archetype distorted and the archetype naturally expressed. So if we look at Jupiter in Leo, transiting through the first house, it will put transiting Pluto in Capricorn in the 6th. That's the PL6H up there on your screen. It'll put transiting Chiron in Pisces through the 8th house. That's the CH8H you see on your screen. So as you are looking at these slides, that's what those abbreviations are behind the house. And so we'll start to take that in as we go around the zodiac. Jupiter and Leo in the first can be, it's a triple fire signature, so it can be over the top with everything. Overly egotistical and self-centered, self-focused, just full of exaggerations and better, bigger, best situations, no matter what archetype in life we're looking at. And there can be excesses with the body and our abilities of what we can and cannot do with the body, as well as our abilities of what we ourselves, first house, can and cannot do. The transiting Pluto in conjunct could bring up some health issues, physical body, first house. Chiron can bring up money crises for us. We're just going to have to watch whenever we see Jupiter in Leo transiting through the fire houses, 1st, 5th, 9th, creates that triple fire. There's going to be a need to just really breathe, calm down, get plenty of water, liquids, baths going on, because we could easily have burnout with this type of a signature. Now, it doesn't mean that everything will go to excess. One of the neglected areas of the archetype of Leo is not enough ego. This is where in EA we say you always got to observe, correlate, because sometimes you'll have planets in Leo or planets in the 5th house because there's a fear of developing the ego, or there's a necessity to develop the ego. And so with this house transit, we could also have people who are just totally overwhelmed with that process of life. It's just too much. I think I'm just going to collapse in upon myself, and I'm not going to express any life force at all. We can also, that going over the top, this can be a house transit where somebody totally wants to be in charge and play de facto God. Or they cannot want to grow up and act extremely childish. That 7th house polarity will point them out to that when they're doing that. And so will both Chiron and Pluto in that yacht aspect to point it back at them at how they're actually behaving. A natural way to express this transit with Jupiter and Leo is reinventing ourselves. First house is initiations and rebirths. And so we can have a complete evolution of our beliefs around ourself and our body. Your traditional astrology likes to say that when Jupiter goes over the ascendant, you gain weight. When Saturn goes over the ascendant, you release weight, regardless of the sign. So there's going to have to be, Jupiter learning how to reinitiate a relationship with the body, and to treat that body as the temple that holds the soul and its spirituality, Jupiter. This is going to have us looking at deepening our self-love. It is the first house. Jupiter's transiting through there because there's something about ourself that we need to learn. And love starts with us. The outer reflections, the outer is just a reflection of inner. So to really be able to move into loving ourselves deeply, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually is what some of this transit is going to be about. And it's also about creative initiations, starting over with creativity and career, or expanding it somehow, some way. Finding the courage to just go out there and initiate things, not necessarily knowing where it's going to go, but willing to have that Leonian courage and make the effort. And of course, the first house is also related to, as you look at the cycle of 12 houses from birth to death, there are infancy, childhood things that can be going on. We could have memories of childhood wounds that we now have the wisdom and the wherewithal to make the effort to heal. And of course, with the Chiron and Pluto transits and the 7th house polarity, we could be making new initiations with our health and also in the area of relationships. Whatever house Jupiter is transiting with Leo, it really is about getting in touch with our authentic self and who we really are, and letting go of the masks that we wear when we compensate on our authenticity. Now, I'm going to go through these fast, I think, because you can get so long-winded with these transits. As I'm going through these transits, if there's an archetype in that house that I've not discussed, you're always welcome to raise your hand or type a question into Leroy and have him go through it with you, or have him relay the question to me. When we look at Jupiter in Leo transiting through the 2nd house, we're having a blend of earth and fire, physical and spirit. Pluto's then 7th house, Chiron is 9th. Again, you'll see those signatures there. One of the distortions that can typically come with this Jupiter Leo transit is we can go to excess with our finances and our resources. We can have excessive spending. We can lose resources if there's something karmically there that we've got to address, or if we're making decisions based upon Jupiter's good luck and optimism that really don't have us grounded or looking at things from a perspective of reality. That 2nd house is about values. We can overvalue ourselves. We can undervalue ourselves. Everybody else is more important than me. We can impose our values onto other people. That fixed fire of Leo, going, I know what you need to think. I know what you need to do. I know how you need to spend your money. We can have others coming back at us doing the same thing. 2nd house deals with our sexual survival. We can have the extremes of sexual hedonism, meaning sexual activity all over the place. If some is good, a lot is better, and being just very indiscriminate that way. We can have sexual dramas start to come up in our life to get attention with our partner if we don't feel we're being loved or treated correctly. Anything with Jupiter and Leo can either be overexpressed or suppressed and underexpressed. Now that Pluto Capricorn signature coming in the 7th house, we could find ourselves wanting to be dominating of others in order to feel secure. Capricorn, Jupiter 2nd. We might even find people wanting to dominate us. Can lead to lots of dramas going on in life. Chiron in Pisces up there in the 9th house. We could have crises over lies in our world, lies around resources, lies around the issue of money and sexuality. We could also have an incongruency with our beliefs. Chiron in the 9th house and Jupiter hanging out there in the 2nd. We could be valuing resources and stuff and materialism more than deepening our inner life or finding value in larger philosophical principles. Some of the natural expressions of Jupiter's transit in Leo through the 2nd, recognizing that the inner values are what sustains us over our outer stuff and materialism. We could be uncovering new talents. 2nd house, Taurus house, is not just resources, but it's how we survive in being able to make a living. So it will describe talents that we have to survive. And Jupiter and Leo could be expanding upon those. It could be helping us recognize new ways in which we can create resources for ourselves, both inner and outer, growing in self-confidence. And of course, if you bring up that subject of sexuality here, it's really about recognizing the sacredness of sexuality and perhaps renewing our vows with someone we may be in relationship with and holding it in esteemed value rather than who's the next one I can take to bed. This can be where we also would heal any childhood wounds around survival, around resources, parent losing their job or dying on us. This can be where we also would work to heal any sexual wounding that came from childhood. And as Jupiter in Leo through the 2nd empowers itself, then that 8th house polarity will lead to mutual empowerment. Pluto and Cap will work with mutual empowerment. And as we are working to look deeply at what we value, then the in conjunct with Chiron will be about actually living what we believe. Do I need the big house? Do I need 3 cars? Do I need all of that materialism? Maybe it's a desire not exhausted yet, but it may be something that we're ready to release. You know, one of the things about Jupiter, as it always expands its outlook on things, there's an energy to simplify. That polarity, Mercury, Gemini, 3rd house from the natural archetype of Jupiter, is all about, you know, one more fact, one more detail, one more class, one more piece of information. Jupiter is, in many ways, about simplification. And so one of the easiest ways we can do that is actually living, 2nd house, what we believe, what is important to us as an individual. This is a way we will be authentic, Jupiter and Leo. As Jupiter and Leo transits through the 3rd house, we now look to be working with a air and fire signature. Again, if you remember, Jupiter naturally rules Sag, a fire sign. Leo is a fire sign. So Jupiter is a double fire signature through this next year, which is that spark of combustion and energy. And this is where we get to the excess and extremes with that double fire. With air, we have to watch about it being stirred up mentally. So Jupiter's transit through the 3rd house We can find all kinds of communication wounds coming to the surface, needing to be right at all cost. That fixed fire with Leo. We could speak and receive hurtful thoughts and words in our world. And with Pluto in the 8th house, it could make us quite confrontational and argumentative with others. Chiron in the 10th, we're either going to want to have control at all cost, or we're going to feel very wounded in a sense of ourself. And as Jupiter moves through its opposite house of rulership, there could be an inability to see the larger picture. We're too caught up in all the details, the facts and the figures and the words and, you know, this class, that book, this conversation, that conversation, and we just lose a sense of self and a sense of foundation. Jupiter. We could have a loss of faith with this Jupiter transit. I don't know what to believe. And as I had said earlier, this can come with all kinds of relationship and work confrontations. There can also be all kinds of sibling karma that we remember from the past, or sibling karma that recycles around one more time. And have we matured well enough to heal that karma, or are we just going to re-imprint it and make it worse yet? With this, we could see ourselves fighting over inheritances with Pluto in that 8th house and this Jupiter and Leo signature. I want the money, no, I want the money, and siblings doing underhanded things in that regard. A lot of details that would need to be taken into consideration. You know, we're just talking about it as an overall picture. You know, it might be a karmic retribution. It might be a karmic necessity. It could be sibling karma victimization that you then have to find a way to move beyond. What's your role in it if you're victimized? Some of the natural expressions of this signature is being absolutely honest with ourselves. No mental game play. Be real. Gemini can look for lots of excuses mentally. 3rd house Gemini. This is going to be a signature as well. Every house will have this self-love signature with the archetype of Leo. But there can be so much activity going on of a mental nature with this Jupiter and Leo transit that we can be projecting that need to love outside of ourselves, and it really is sometimes about coming inward. That 3rd house will sometimes have involution when we're just saturated with stuff in our head and it doesn't work anymore. And so there is that turning inward to love ourselves and really, you know, be real with ourselves. And so it brings up inner and outer honesty in communications, not playing any head games with ourselves or others. And what we need to be searching for is the deeper meanings or intents behind words. If 3rd house is too focused on literal interpretations of words, that Jupiterian meaning just flies right over their head, and then they fracture more. Mental whirlwinds, as I call it. The storm goes bigger yet. So there's a need to calm down and breathe and hear the meaning behind any words spoken. Jupiter can, in this house transit in Leo, can have a lot of scattered creativity, and so there needs to be a focusing of creativity with this transit. What really makes the most sense for me to do from a deep intuitive level? This is source energy coming through one self and saying, here's what you need to be doing. Apologies for that. I am going to unplug the phone. So we need to find that quieting down that allows Source to show us which of the many creative paths possible is the highest and best one for us to focus upon. And then that helps us find our own path, find our own belief, rather than being scattered all around with what everybody else thinks and believes. It also allows us to quiet down and really walk our talk, to be in the world what we want to see in the world. And then, of course, this house transit is always an opportunity to heal childhood wounds of a verbal, mental nature, to heal any childhood wounds with our siblings, especially from that broader perspective of recognizing that all of us in the sibling situation may have felt wounded at a parental environment that couldn't acknowledge us for who we really are. And as we are maturing into adulthood, we then, in our sibling relationships with each other, could be working to empower creativity with siblings. Taking that healing of our own childhood, if siblings are involved, their childhoods, and all of us finding that ability to forgive, understand, heal, move forward. As we look at the transit of Jupiter in Leo through the 4th house, we're looking at the combination of a water and fire signature. This has a tendency to create steam or put out the fire. And Pluto falls into the 9th house by transit. Chiron falls in the 11th house by transit. So, of course, this Jupiter and Leo signature between Leo and the 4th house is going to represent childhood wounds, emotional wounding in our earlier environment, wounds to our self-image and how we see ourselves, how we love ourselves. This can distort into an extreme neediness in love, what Leo will call that bottomless pit. No matter how much attention or emotional sustenance somebody gives us, it's never enough. We could find ourselves alone sometimes with those distortions because we have to learn to love self. We could have shut down and just be almost non-existent. Just emotional withdrawal and isolation from that wounding. We could, be quite wounded from our parental behavior. We could be quite wounded by the behavior of our parents. We could also move through wounding because we carried forward all of these childhood distortions and we passed it on to our kids. So we could have parental wounding. I didn't know any better. And so here's Jupiter in Leo opening up how you treated your own children and evolving it. And of course, we can have all the distortions of emotional trauma dramas. We can have the emotional extremes, totally all over the place, and then complete withdrawal, isolation, cold shoulder stuff that goes on. The nurturing beliefs. We could have distortions. If we had wounding in our own childhood, we could take on beliefs that, being a child is it stinks. It's no fun. I mean, we could have all kinds of distortions around that, projecting that outward into adult relationships, projecting it onward to our children. There's this need to grow up. That transit of Pluto, Capricorn, ninth house, it's really asking us to take a step back and look at it from a broader picture. Jupiter's natural house. Be realistic. The parents could have been wounded, 10 times as bad as us, or it's going to really point towards that need to be able to step back, look at it, and grow up, mature ourselves. That Chiron signature from the 11th, there needs to be an objectivity around all of the emotional wounding, early environment wounding, adult feeling like nobody loves us. Chiron's objectivity is about the need to love ourselves. And that's one of the ways we start to naturally express this Jupiter and Leo transit. I love me. I'm the best lover I've ever had. I will always be the best lover I will ever have. Really deeply loving self on an emotional level. And then that allows us to mature and learn how to parent ourselves in whatever ways are necessary as we move through adulthood. Taking responsibility for ourselves in the world, rather than 10th house, expecting everybody else, 10th house polarity to this transit, expecting everybody else to take care of us. This Jupiter and Leo transit is about recognizing that the evolution of our beliefs takes place through the emotional body. It's going inward to the gut, the sixth sense, and what makes sense for me on an intuitive, emotional level as truth for me. And of course, that's going to be evolving through this Jupiter in Leo transit over the next year. And with creativity, it's moving through creativity on emotional levels, what feels like the right thing to do. And it can be as literal as home-based creativity, leaving that job and starting entrepreneurship from our home in some way could actually take place. It might not be necessarily for everybody who has this 4th house Jupiter and Leo transit, but that possibility is there. And it could be something we start to do part-time, that maybe in 6 years as Jupiter crosses the midheaven in Aquarius, where we then want to step away and be the entrepreneur. See how you can be creative in the home. See how you can have creative career ideas that you could initiate from the home. And this Jupiter and Leo transit is about being authentic with how we really feel. No masks. Honoring that emotional body and expressing it as clearly as you can with people. I hear Leroy.
Kim, I just want to step back and help some of the newer people to astrology on the call on how to really find the areas of influence in their own chart. Can we go over that quickly for people? We would want to be looking at 0 degrees Leo in your chart, right? In what
Yes,
house?
you would want to be looking at where you have Leo in your chart. What house cusp is it going through? Chances are, as I described this, the Jupiter transit is going to cover 2 of these houses. For instance, if you have on your 4th house cusp Leo at 10 degrees, Jupiter's going to be in the 3rd right now. It's going to cross over into that 4th house when it reaches 10 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Jupiter, through its retrograde cycle, which we covered last night, could easily back up into another house. So these Jupiter lessons could be going back and forth between 2 of these slides. And depending upon how your house cusps are divvied out, when we work with this, I have to do the yod according to, whole houses. If Jupiter's in the 4th, I have to put Pluto in Capricorn. In the 9th, I have to put Chiron in Pisces in the 11th. And so to extend that over multiple houses, as the yod can do, would have us in a week-long class. So this is, if you want to, just pay attention to the Jupiter transit if you're not ready yet for looking at how this yod is actually happening in your entire chart.
Thanks, Kim. That helped a lot.
Any other questions? You can interrupt me if you need to, Leroy. Of course, this Jupiter in Leo transit through the 4th house of our natal chart. If we find ourselves of the age where we are parents with our own children, this is us being able to evolve and expand to healthy parenting, being able to see our children for who they truly are rather than what we want to project onto them, unconscious projections from our own childhood wounds, consciously projecting how we think they need to behave and how they need to be. So as we open up and heal our own emotional wounds and find a deeper level of emotional peace, then we calm down as parents. Then we, again, learn to be real and authentic with our child. We learn to be nurturers rather than, just dictating to them how we think they should behave and how they should be and how they should feel. So as Jupiter again evolves through this house and we evolve on emotional levels, then our emotional relationships with everybody else in our life is going to evolve, not just necessarily with elderly parents or, some of our own children. Okay? So, moving along, Jupiter and Leo transiting through the 5th house. This is Leo's own house. So we're back to having that triple fire signature. Again, things get really stirred up because Jupiter rules a fire sign. Leo is a fire sign, and the 5th house naturally relates to Leo, so it's a fire house. And so everything can just be totally expanded. So with this transit, basically, everything we spoke about last night with Jupiter and Leo covers this transit. The distortions and wounds of childhood, the wounds to our creativity, feeling that we've got to, cry for attention, drama, to be noticed. We can do the opposite. We can have a loss of ourself and I don't even know who I am. We can be very overly egotistical. We can have to deal with karma kids. We can be a karma kid with those karma parents that we got stuck with. With Jupiter, there can be all kinds of masks that we can be wearing rather than being who we really are. Again, Leo, it's shining our light as we authentically are as a soul. And if we're not doing that, Jupiter in Leo brings us the masks in order to be accepted, in order to be loved, in order to be noticed by someone. This transit, as we move into adulthood, the love affairs could go on, both us and a partner. If we have this house transit, it could be the partner that has the love affair on us and walks away, leaves us alone for that 11th house polarity shock. We could have past life wounds around love that somehow, some way recycle and repeat themselves with this Jupiter and Leo transit in order to heal it, to heal ourselves in some way. We could want to remain a child with this Jupiter Leo 5th house transit. I don't want to grow up. I want to stay in my temper tantrum. I want to, continue to cause havoc for the world so that, what is that? That negative attention is better than no attention, that little cliche. We could get stuck in all that stuff. We could have done it as a child. We could be repeating that pattern into adulthood. And so what we are really having to do here is be able to see that creative force, Leo, in everybody, the 11th house polarity. That in conjunct with Pluto in the 10th is really going to ask us to grow up, to mature. The Chiron transit in the 12th, if we don't want to grow up, we could, again, stay stuck in our victimization, in our trauma dramas. And that Chiron in Pisces signature in the 12th, when we look at this yod as it happens 3 times over this next 12 months, it really is going to ask us to have a deep inner connection to source energy. And then we're looking, at that inner love. We're seeing our creativity come from within us, expressing outwards. We heal those childhood wounds. We grow up. The healthy parenting comes in here as well. We see our children as they authentically are, unique beings. Astrologers, we have their chart to help us guide us with that. We let go of the masks. We stand in our truth. We be who we really are. And we learn to believe in ourselves. I am a spark of the universe. And source energy does come through me. I will, my will, divine will source. How would you have me create as a dynamo in the universe for you? Asking that question will bring that information through. May not be how we want it to be, but if we sincerely ask, the universe will answer. Source will answer. And if we really look at that maturation process in loving ourselves on a deep level inwardly, then we will move into healthy giving and receiving in all our relationships. We'll be able to actually give to another as they would like to receive. It's another distortion of Leo. I'm so full of myself, I'm going to give to you what I want to give you rather than check in with you and see what you want.
Kim,
Mm-hmm.
because the 5th house has been known as the house of taking excessive risks in Jupiter and Leo there, with that yacht of Pluto in the 10th. Could this be a little warning, career warning shot over the bow, so to speak?
Yes, yes, it could easily be that. Yes, that's a very good point here with all of this. Jupiter in Leo through the 5th can be so full of self, and it can be so juiced, triple fire, on its own sense of creativity, that 11th house polarity is nowhere in sight, and they can go to excess in launching, some new career, or breaking free, or breaking out. And the yacht from Pluto in Capricorn 10th is the reality check. And Chiron in Pisces in the 12th can just be in denial of the reality check. They're in a sextile to each other. We could easily fool ourselves. And so with this transit and all that excessive fire excitement, it can be very important that you do check in with objective, non-biased, other parties that'll give you the truth as they see it, give you the facts as they see it, rather than telling you what you want to hear. Very good point for that signature. Yeah, and anybody else, as we're going through these houses, if things come up for you, by all means, please feel free to open up, add on to the picture, ask questions. You're more than welcome. Just for your note, Leroy, I've just seen, I don't see that Q&A thing pop up, when somebody either raises their hand or types in a question. On my old laptop, my laptop died. I'm working, that's why class was delayed. Last night, tonight, I'm working from a brand new laptop, and so that little hand raising doesn't come up, Leroy. I have it closed down because I get too distracted if I'm reading what everybody's typing, but I'm not even seeing anybody raise their hands, so that doesn't allow me to naturally stop. I just want to point that out, Leroy.
Yeah, no problem. It's we're having some nice interactions on the Q&A board.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you just allowing me to focus, and I appreciate Leroy doing his 3rd house Pluto interactions with you. As we look at the Jupiter and Leo transit through the 6th house, we are looking at our 2nd Earth. 6th house is an Earth house. So we have an Earth and Fire signature. So there's the practicality that starts to be added to that excitement of the fire. As we look at some of the distortions here, we can definitely have either over-egotism or under-egotism in our own healings, in our work as a healer. So we can think we're the best healer there ever was, or we can do all of the 6th house procrastinations and self-doubts and not trusting the 12th house polarity intuitions in our own work as a healer. We'll go to both of those extremes. It's a Earth house, so again, we're going to be dealing with work issues. We can see a lot of work, trauma, drama, 6th house known as crises. And so there can be all kinds of issues that come up over work. And we can be the one creating those crises. We can be the ones blowing things out of proportion. Or we can have our coworkers doing that. And why do I get drawn in the middle of this? If that's the case, then there's something about you that is needing to stand up. Chiron's over there in that 1st house of self. Pluto's in the 11th house of objectivity, also the group. All right, so there may be something whereby you never want to draw attention to yourself, and yet you get drug into all these crises and work dramas, and there's something about you that needs to stand up. Leo, speak up. Be heard. Bring forth your ability to solve a situation. The hypochondriac relates to what I had said earlier. We either can be over or under egotistical in our own abilities to heal. So with this transit, if we're not inwardly loving ourselves, we can be running around with our head cut off. We can be the melodrama of the slightest health issues and driving our partner or our children, crazy with, it's do or die for me right now. And, we probably all have seen those who've been hypochondriacs in our world. There's a need for that 12th house polarity to find a deeper inner connection to source energy. And Jupiter in Leo is bringing that through on a very conscious level. Can you find your connection to source in order to calm down? Can you see that source energy loves you on a deep inner level? Can you create your own miracle? Chiron in the first, again, we can have all kinds of bodily stuff going on that has us re-imprinting, victimization, standing in our story, and we've got to let go of some of that. We have to learn how to heal and be okay with some of the imperfections as a human on planet Earth. We're not perfect here. Pluto in the 11th, there's the objectivity that needs to come in. There's some of the, let's be real, Capricorn. Is it a life and death situation? Or is that just a signature that you have been conditioned with? Jupiter in Leo is shining the light of day on it, and it's time to evolve through it. We can have an inability to see our real self with this house, Jupiter and Leo, transiting the 6th house, because we're in so much drama and crises all the time, we can't even see who we really are. It could, all of this stuff could be arising from coming in this way as a child, karmically. Then we really have to look at some of the deeper levels of why is this karmic necessity to grow up. Is it karmic retribution that, something we're atoning for? Again, it's not always known just by physically looking at the chart. It's known on a deep inner level by the soul. And most souls can sense that. We can also, if we have children, just be in crises after crises after crises with our children. And so they become hypochondriacs. They have stressed out nervous systems. They can, never seem to be able to calm down or find any peace. And so it becomes very important for us that we learn to find our own inner peace, our own objectivities, so that is what we're bringing through for our children. Now, if we are working in healthy expressions of this archetype, then we can see ourselves. We learn to have a healthy sense of self, and we learn to naturally intuit and sense what is necessary for our own healing. Then as we work to become our own healers, then we start to create a natural magnetism that draws others to us as a healer. We come up with this natural essence of allowing the creativity of the universe to flow through us. We become a modern day, Florence Nightingale. We become a modern day healer, but we hold healthy boundaries. 12th house polarity. We have a sense of honoring ourselves. Chiron Pisces, first house. And we learn to be objective and real with others with that Pluto signature. So we use our intuition with others, and we start to learn, 7th house following, that natural giving and receiving, when to help heal somebody, when to facilitate healing, and we recognize when it's not ours to do, or it's something we don't have the power or abilities to do, and we have to refer people on to somebody who heals better than us, or in ways that we don't understand, and talents we don't have. So we become more peaceful and relaxed in our work, in our creativity as a healer, both with ourselves, with others, and with children.
If someone's having their Jupiter in Leo as a Jupiter return now in the 6th house, is it a double emphasis?
Yep, everything's coming back around one more time. Where were you 12 years ago, 24 years ago? The patterns would be similar. They could be re-imprinting the same way. Maybe not. It will just depend, because Jupiter is that principle of growth and expansion. The growth can be the health crises, or the growth can be the healing. And you're going to have to look at that 12th house polarity and your connection to source energy if it's health crises that need to be healed. And one of the purposes, again, of Jupiter in Leo is consciously evolving your beliefs with source, your connection to source energy, your direct connection to source energy. On a generic level, whatever sign is on the 6th house and its ruler by house sign aspect, that will be the description of some of your physical weaknesses and manifestations in this life. On a generic level, whatever sign is on the 12th house cusp and its ruler, planetary, by house and sign and aspect, will describe where you are spiritually wounded, where you are disconnected with source, and therefore the life force is not flowing. This is generic for everybody, not Leo. And then how the manifestations are coming. So the 6th house cusp is the physical manifestation. The 12th house cusp is the metaphysical causal reason. That is a subject all on its own. As these webinars as I keep evolving with these webinars, at some point I'll move into teaching health and wellness classes as webinars, and they may be a segment 3 class, or they may be public classes. They may be a combination of the two. Stay tuned as I get my webinar teaching belt under me. Finally, when Jupiter in Leo in the 6th is in its natural expressions of energy, there's just a natural ability to give to others in all kinds of ways. We 6th house is service to the other and service to the whole. And when we're healthy, then we intuit how to give to somebody else, Leo, how to make them feel received. All right, moving on. Halfway, checking my time. I'm catching up a little bit. If I'm lucky, I might make it through the rest of these 6 houses in the next 50 minutes. That's the goal. But you're welcome with these questions or comments. There's no worries. I am not going to excuse my burp, be able to remember exactly everything. So appreciate your input. As we look at Jupiter and Leo transiting through the 7th house, you can see it puts Pluto Cap in the 12th, Chiron Pisces in the 2nd. Here we are moving again into air and fire, where we can have things stirred up, and we've kind of got to work to calm them down. Fire and air is gonna stir things up, create excitement. Water and earth is gonna calm down, dampen, smooth out. Distortions here. Childhood wounds projected onto our adult relationships, projected onto partners, projected upon to anybody we have adult relationships with. 7th house is those equality lessons, and so we've got to deal with wanting to dominate others, have power over others, or others doing it to us. Leroy, question or comment?
There's some distortion coming through.
Me?
Yes.
I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I forgot to hold my mic. So I'll hold my mic, and does this seem that it's moving it out?
It just seemed like the sensitivity was scraping on your clothing or something.
Okay, yeah, I forgot tonight to hold that little mic out. Sorry about that. Maybe I can do that over this next hour now.
We'll get creative with Jupiter and Leo and figure something out that'll be permanent for you.
Yeah, and I may have to figure out a headpiece that has a microphone right up next to the mic, I think. And so yes, this Jupiter and Leo transit through the 7th, there's going to be these extremes of domination, dominated. We can have extremes of neediness with others, neediness in our creativity. We can have wounded beliefs around relationships. Nobody's ever going to love me. Nobody's ever going to see me for who I truly am. Nobody's going to notice all my unique creative talents and abilities in relationships. You know, again, we have Chiron in the 2nd house. We have Pluto in the 12th. We're going to have to watch a little bit of victimization. We're going to have to watch being stuck in our mental loops here. The Chiron Pisces 2nd house signature is going to have us wanting to go inward and find a direct connection to source energy that we feel resourced through source, that then minimizes projections onto partners. And Pluto Cap in that 12th house is also going to emphasize deeper connections to source energy and to really be real about our connection to source energy. Both that Chiron and Pluto signature could re-imprint victimization, but in healthy expressions of the yod, they also could be us feeling more and more connected to source energy and really finding a deep empowerment from within and through source that then allows us to move into healthier and healthier relating patterns. If we're having those insecurities, we have a lot of projections, we have a lot of neediness, all the 7th house words. We wear a lot of masks. The 7th house, well, I sometimes will call Libra in the 7th the karma chameleon. Let me see, what role should I play in order for you to like me? And you put Jupiter there through Leo, and we can get pretty darn creative with our masks. And then all of a sudden, there's some exposure of our real self, and the partner could just be shocked or leave. You know, we can be thrown in on ourselves with that 1st house polarity. So we have to look at how we wear masks with others. Where are we afraid to speak up? Where are we silent? Pluto Cap 12th, rather than standing in our sense of self-authority and speaking up. Now, natural expressions of this Jupiter-Leo transit through the 7th is seeing the divine in another, seeing that spark of source through our partner, seeing the creativity of our partner, and being willing to be supportive of that to the point that there's mutual support creatively in a relationship. We have a healthy sense of our own ego in relating. We let go of the neediness. We let go of the need to be in control and dominate in order to feel safe and secure, Pluto Chiron, Yod. This could start to bring in some natural leadership qualities. Jupiter and Leo in the 7th can just intuit what needs to be done or said in order to help others, in order to help others expand and grow on a creative level, empowering others with their leadership qualities. And of course, because that 7th house starts to look for those equality lessons, we start to have healthy boundaries as parent-child with our parents, with our children, whatever our little situations are, according to our age group. And of course, if we let go of those masks, we learn how to shine and be who we really truly are. We learn to be authentic. We're not comparing and contrasting to adopt all these masks. We're comparing and contrasting to say, not that, I will be this. This is who I really am. And then we can be some creative dynamos in relationships. And if we're wanting to move into, healing modalities, Chiron in Pisces, people can sense this person's real, this person's authentic. I want to, be with this person. I want to see how they can help me with my own creative aspirations. All right, I got to take another drink of water. I thank you for bearing with me. I can get really thirsty in these classes. Talk, talk, talk. And apologies if you hear me sucking through my straw. As we look at the Jupiter and Leo transit through the 8th house, as you can see, it puts Pluto and Cap in the 1st. It puts Chiron in Pisces in the 3rd. Here again, we have the water and fire signature. We're going to create steam, or we're going to put the spark out. How can we balance that? So here comes some of the distortions of the 8th house. Just like the 7th, it becomes even more intense. We want the power over, under another, especially the intimate partner. We can again have resource issues. We can hoard, we can have it taken away. We can have all of the sexual woundings that can come in almost any direction you can think of. We can have incest because Leo will be, again, the child. We can have the control games. We can have all the manipulations. These are going to come when Leo is insecure, when we don't have a sense of our own self-empowerment. Then we've got to start playing all of the 8th house Scorpio extremes in order to try and gain some sense of outer security. We can see extremes with the desire nature. Leo and Jupiter going to excess, we can go to excess with separating desires. We could have excess with returning desires as well. We can have such a desire to be the spiritual guru that we completely suppress and ignore our sexual nature. And that could come around and, trip us up with some type of sexual scandal. We could take all of the masks to extreme levels. We could pretend to be the healer. Hypnotism belongs to the 8th house. We could pretend, we could put ourselves out there as the hypnotist. Jeffrey Green wrote about this in Pluto Volume 2, by the way. I don't remember what all the archetypes were, but I mean, the example that popped into my head is the hypnotist who is very charismatic and yet is very dark underneath, and uses his ability to hypnotize to control, to play games, to sexually abuse. So all of those 8th house extremes can be taken to, extreme levels with this Jupiter and Leo signature. Sooner or later, there's going to be some type of emotional crash or exposure, that 2nd house falling in upon yourself to really reach inwardly for that self-reliance and self-empowerment. Pluto's going to be in the 4th house. Chiron's going to be in the 3rd. Again, there could be some type of verbal exposure. There could be some type of exposure in the media, if you wanted to use my previous example. That Pluto in the 1st house, there could literally be a crisis over self-identity and the ability to be creative and bring in resources. You see, one of the key words I wrote here with this Jupiter and Leo transit is creativity vampires. If people are falling into that Leonian insecurity, they could steal other people's ideas. They could merge with another long enough to figure out what they're doing and then, disappear with it. Use it themselves without giving the creative credit in some way. Now we start to look at the natural expressions with Jupiter and Leo through the 8th house. We're looking at someone who, again, learning to self-love inwardly, would then learn to be empowering of oneself. Therefore, they don't feel threatened by others, and they would empower others. They could be beautiful examples of helping others move out there in the world into their own power. In intimate relationships, there could be deep merging and deep love here. And we could see the other in their true essence and in their true power. And we could, almost selflessly give in that direction and support them in being all that they could be out there in the world. In other words, we support the creativity of others rather than try and co-opt it in some way. This becomes very giving because Jupiter and Leo is shared 8th house is shared resources. Leo, when it's full of self-love, is giving by nature. So there could be a giving and sharing of one's resources in helping others personally, intimately, with partners, and creatively with groups of people as we're moving through the 2nd half of the zodiac. There would be what I'm describing is healthy magnetism. Wow, this person just eludes self-love. They elude self-confidence. They're not, overly egotistical about it. There's a quiet magnetism that is just so deeply attracting. I want to learn from them. I want to know from them. I want to be around them and see if I can learn this for myself.
Yogananda was a Jupiter 8th house.
There we go. There's an example. Another thing here, because Jupiter deals with beliefs, healthy expression of this is a deep, deep search for truth. The deepest truth we can recognize about ourselves, and the deepest truths that we can recognize about others, and then expressing that, living it, speaking it, not falling for any of the masks or compensations that Jupiter can be so good with. So again, the extremes of good and bad, and because it's water, I think that it also could be, well, we talked about that deep merging in love, but just an ability to truly emotionally give to others.
Emotionally elevate.
There, that's one. Thank you, Mr. Weimer. All right, moving along here. As we look at Jupiter and Leo transiting through the 9th house, it puts Pluto in the 12th in Cap. It puts Chiron in Pisces in the 4th, and we fall to the last of our triple fire signatures, fire house, and of course Jupiter, fire, ruling a fire sign, fire house, Leo being a fire sign. Everything we spoke about Jupiter last night will be expanded upon here. Distortions can be all of the religious and spiritual wounds. We can be egotistical, overly egotistical from a religious sense or from a spiritual guru sense. We can have all of the honesty and integrity issues, wearing the spiritual masks, all the compromising that we can do upon ourselves, having this exaggerated understanding about ourselves, having this big broad picture about ourselves, but not really being real or authentic about it. This is where we have the preacher versus teacher syndrome. Let me tell you, Jupiter and Leo, 9th house, I got it all put together, and if you just listen to me, I can tell you what to do. I can tell you how to think. I can tell you how to be. I know what's good for you. We can just get on that soapbox and start expanding, and we're going to run into those 3rd house confrontations of somebody, bursting the bubble and pulling that soapbox right out from underneath us. Pluto's in that 2nd house in Cap. There's a double Earth signature. We could be just overly confident with resources here. We could find resource upsets. Chiron's in Pisces in the 4th. We could have emotional wounding here to the degree that we don't think we can sustain ourselves, Pluto signature, and that 9th house does all kinds of compensations and games of magnetizing others into taking care of them. They can appear to have it all together when you look behind the scene. It's like the Wizard of Oz. When you look behind the curtain, there was no wizard. There was just a small little person. So that type of distortions can be being exposed with this yod. As you see, there can be a denial of what's real, denial of that childhood. When it comes to creativity, just like the 3rd house, they can kind of be all over the place. All talk, no walk. I had creative floater in here. They dabble in this and dabble in that. Both 3rd house and 9th house can be that, jack of all trades, master of none. When it gets down to the real work, 2nd house, they can just move on. I'm going to move on to the next thing that seems like a good idea, but I don't really want to put the effort into that. And so again, that's when the pie in the sky will come crashing down. As we had spoken earlier, when you look at this Jupiter signature, Jupiter transiting through its own house, You can have all of the masks, all of the compensations, all of the disconnects with what's real and what is true. As we start to look at some of the natural expressions of this, Jupiter and Leo 9th house signature, we can truly have charismatic healers, teachers, spiritual leaders. We can have people who are living an authentic life, being real. They walk their talk. They teach by example. This is again where you'll have those leadership qualities, the authentic magnetism coming out. They can have the the books that sell. They can have the public speaking experience that is very attractive to many people. But the real biggie here is, again, they're walking their talk. They're real. They're not doing it in a false, distorted way. They are grounded. That Pluto transit in the second house, then, they are grounded in what's real and what's not real. And when everything that isn't real is exposed to them by life, they make an effort with the change. That Chiron signature in the fourth house, they keep looking for the next level of healing. Their own childhood, helping to heal children. This signature right here with this yod, this could be somebody who finds a calling to be an advocate or a teacher for children, wanting everybody to have the ability to heal emotional wounds. And of course, they're going to be in this process of wanting to have deeply spiritual relationships with any and all people. They're going to see the spark of source in others as much as they see it in themselves. And they're going to hold it in an equal balance, not, again, not wanting to be greater source of attention than anybody else. They could almost shy away from some of that attention. I think that this Jupiter transit through the ninth house could have some real creative dynamos coming into lifetimes of what they've been searching and studying and learning, and now the universe is bringing the opportunity to express it with others. As we look at Jupiter and Leo transiting through the 10th house, we're looking at Pluto and Cap in the 3rd house by transit. We're looking at Chiron and Pisces in the 5th house by transit. Here we have the last of the Earth houses. So we have Earth and Fire signature as pertains to the elements, the 4 elements of the zodiac. Distortions, of course, what we will see here is childhood wounding, parental wounding, and the need for that to heal, the need for the maturation in that. We're going to have authority egos. We can have somebody who thinks, my gosh, I can be the boss, I can be the CEO, let me be in charge, I can tell you what we need to do in the work world, I can tell you what I need to do in my career. They can be overinflated with an ego in the whole world of work and career and resources, Earth house. And so there can be the falls from ego. There can be the falls with career. They can have resource wounds and losses if it's fluffed up ego and there's no real groundedness to it. Pluto and Cap is going to be in the 3rd house. One moment it's here, one moment it's gone. Chiron in Pisces is going to be in the 5th house. Again, they could be an overinflatedness in what they think they can do on a creative way. That end justifies the means could come in here, and we could have the lies, we could have the manipulations trying to get ahead, and we could have the crashing down. We could have guilt, both conditioned and natural. All the creativity stuff is going to be very closely related to what I've said around career and wounds. We either do it in distorted ways that sooner or later will trip us up. If we have those childhood wounds with this 10th house signature, there could be a failure to grow up. You know, this could be the person who never wants to take responsibility for themselves. Jupiter and Leo, I want to be the child. I'm going to always find excuses on why I can't be responsible for my bills or, you know, the children that I father or give birth to, that I parent. You know, that stuff can be carried forward. There can be a lot of bravado masking. Capricorn, the 10th house, I have to be in charge. And it can be really hiding that Leonian sense, insecurity on inner levels. And of course, with this Jupiter-Leo transit, we can substitute resources, materialism, stuff. We can substitute that for beliefs. Beliefs about ourselves, beliefs in the world. If I just accumulate enough stuff, well, I'll be okay. Well, that's a false belief. Those of us who have been evolving beyond consensus can start to recognize at some point. So natural expressions is that there can be a natural leadership here as well. It would be a fair leadership. They wouldn't want power for power's sake. They wouldn't want control just to be in charge. They would be empowering of others. They would be helping others move up. They would want to help others with their own creative efforts out there in the world. There could be someone who could have deep beliefs that their efforts in work and career are helpful to the world, are helping others. These would be authority figures who would sincerely wish to help others succeed. I always paraphrase this, but a long time ago I ran across this cliche that true managers always lift up those beneath them, for it naturally lifts them up as well. You could substitute true leaders, naturally lift those up beneath them because it lifts them up as well. So there could be, you know, the sincere success and efforts in that world of work and career, and they could be, you know, the CEO who gives profits away to help the homeless or the needy or, you know, the environment. There's all kinds of ways in which they could be creative in taking their success and helping others. They would, of course, mature and naturally learn how to parent themselves. They would naturally learn how to see the unique creativity of their child. They wouldn't say, because I went to medical school, you have to follow in my footsteps and you must also become a doctor if the child wants to be an artist and play guitar. They would say, go play guitar. They would allow the child's creativity to mature in whatever ways it's naturally expressed through the child. They would share their resources. They wouldn't be accumulating things to just have a sense of power or Leonian selfishness. They would naturally share it in some way. They would, you know, give it away. The example and I have no idea what his chart is, but that artist who died of heroin, Philip Seymour Hoffman, his will was legalized. He had 3 children with a long-term partner. He gave his entire estate to his partner because he did not want his children to be trust fund babies and waste their lives. And that could be an example of this signature. May not make the children happy, but it could be some, healthy parenting. To say, you're not going to have it handed to you. I worked for it. You work for it. You help yourself. I'll help you. So maybe there's some details in his will we're not aware of, but again, just using that as a loose example. Looking at Jupiter and Leo transiting through the 11th house. We have Pluto in Capricorn in the 4th. We have Chiron in Pisces in the 6th in the odd signature that we'll see over the next year. Here again, we're in the last of the air elements, and we have the combination of a air and fire signature. Some of the distortions, because Jupiter in Leo is in the opposite house of its rulership, the 5th, Leo, we could have over or under egos again. We could have that mental over ego and that sense of elitism or entitlement that could go on with the 11th house. I'm smarter than you. I know more than you. I deserve to have more. We could have the under ego. That's where we start to get into all the 11th house traumas and the ego being so dampened in past lives, perhaps, or early childhood stuff here, arrested childhoods could be in here, that they're fractured. There's no sense of ego. There's this is the PTSD house. And so there could just be a total arrestment of mental capacities. There's the mental wounding, the PTSD that could come in, the schizophrenia and hearing voices that could come in, the fractured psyche, with bipolar, all that stuff could start to come in if we have childhood wounds or past life wounds as a child, Leo in the 11th or ruling the 11th. And Jupiter comes along and opens it all up. When Jupiter transits through a house, regardless of the sign, Jupiter is going to open up the wounds and distortions of that house. So you can follow Jupiter around all 12 houses, regardless of signs, and it's going to open up the distortion. It's going to open it up in consciousness, Jupiter, to make sense of it, understand it, and hopefully heal it. Because 11th house squares 2nd and 8th, there can be resource traumas here as well. Especially there can be creativity trauma. And a typical thing that can happen with the 11th house is there's all this mental creativity, but it stays unacted upon. So you could put Jupiter and Leo in this 11th house with all this mental creativity, and they could be in many ways overconfident, over-enthusiastic, overabundant with that creativity, and then it all comes crashing down, and that's its own trauma. Or it could be underactivity, inaction, and then that's its own trauma in, why won't anybody notice me? And there needs to be a noticing of self. Pluto and Caps going through the 4th house, there needs to be a maturation process on emotional levels. Chiron in Pisces, there could be that re-imprinting of a sense of victimization. Nobody sees me, nobody notices me, nobody loves me. Well, 5th house polarity, what are you doing to love yourself? And then all of this could, as I think I said before, it could stem from an arrested childhood, traumas in the childhood, sexual abuses and incest in the childhood from the second eighth, from past lives. And so what Jupiter has to open up here is objectivity, 11th house. And objectivity with wounding that we're carrying forward from past lives, with wounding we're carrying forward from our own childhoods. And as we look at that from the larger perspective, the more detached perspective, then we need to make those efforts to heal. And as we heal, then those natural expressions of visionary magnetic leaders come through, where we can get very intuitive on where others have the same type of wounding and how they need to heal. You can have healers with this signature, and their ability to facilitate healing in others will be relative to the degree that they've been working through their own wounds and healing them. We can have, with this signature, we can have visionaries that are ahead of their time, and they're bringing through things creatively, and they have to find the inner peace to see themselves, and patience, to see themselves as a channel for source. If they get too egotistically involved with it, nobody will notice it. They die ahead of their time, people seeing what they've done, or the creativity is lost some way. So they've got to be able to share it with the world, and again recognize channel for source. Source put it through however it is best. Roy?
Maria Montessori, Jupiter in the 11th.
Ah, the Montessori schools.
And
Thank you.
she was a advocate of astrology, and everything emerged from natural law, including the discipline to learn.
Yeah, I put the Bill Gates type in here because I was just, my head was, I was thinking computers, and I was going, okay, who could this be? I have no idea where his chart is, but I'm just using it figuratively. But yes, Maria Montessori could be an excellent example, and there's working, she worked with children, although you didn't say what sign she had Jupiter in, if it was in Leo or not, but you could get the example of what we're talking about. They could be visionaries not only with creativity but also with resources as well, with the squares to the second and the eighth. And natural expressions would be sharing those resources. I can't, Bill Gates is in his consensus way with the medical world. Probably wouldn't be an example that most of us would appreciate. But Montessori schools, definitely. Jupiter in the 11th. And with the 5th house polarity. So there's examples. There's many, many examples of how this could come through. It's the visionary healer who has to be willing to give it to the world for the sake of sharing what they have brought through. Again, recognizing I will, my will, divine will. We are a channel for the source of creativity, universal source, to express through us. And this can be dynamite examples of where it could come through with this signature. And a lot of it, again, with today, is going to relate to Pluto and Cap fourth. What we have here is the signs on their opposite natural houses. So there is that objectivity again that comes through. So we'd have to have some emotional maturity, and we'd have to have some ability to want to share healing for the sake of healing. And that's going to be what that yod is going to impress upon those of us today who have this current transit. Leroy?
Excuse my echo, Kim, and everybody out there, but this might be a good time to ask a question that came through the board about this Jupiter and Leo transiting either the south node or the north node in the chart.
Well, particular to EA, if Jupiter in Leo is conjunct the north node, and I'm assuming this question is the natal north node, then it's going to be an impetus to really move forward in new ways of loving yourself, of loving others, of expressing yourself creatively, new ideas that are going to come through, new ways of parenting, new ways of being real with yourself. North Node is the emotional future. So it's an impetus to move forward emotionally with all of the Jupiter and Leo archetypes we spoke about. If Jupiter in Leo is conjunct the natal South Node, you have what EA states as 3 possibilities. The first possibility is relive. You didn't get it last time around, so you got to repeat it, relive it, redo it. The second possibility is fruition. There's been so much prior life effort that it's going to come through and just be a fruition of expression and manifestation out there in the world. The first 2 possibilities are rare. The third possibility is the most common example, which is a mixture of relive and fruition. So there would be a mixture of relive fruition in regards to evolving beliefs, in regards to love, giving and receiving, in regards to children, karma kids, step kids, in regards to parenting, step parenting, karma parenting, in regards to creativity, and some things creatively flow and some things are not going to go anywhere creatively. In regards to all of the egotistical masks that we wear rather than being our authentic self. Some ways we're going to have the expression of the mask, some ways we're going to have the authentic self. So where do we move forward authentically, and where do we need to let the mask go? All right, the last of the 12 houses. I think I've left enough time. I gave myself 10 minutes. I says, okay, I got to have 10 minutes for each of the 12 houses. I'm not robbing the 12th house of its fair share. With Jupiter and Leo's transiting through the 12th house, that means Pluto and Cap is transiting the 5th house, more or less. Chiron in Pisces is transiting the 7th house. Here we have the last of the mixtures of water and fire signatures. Some of the distortions that start to come through is we have a deep wounding to our sense of self and our psyche. I don't know who I am. I have unhealthy boundaries. I have no boundary that is myself. You can start to hear, you can also bring in the bipolar, you can bring in mental, emotional wounding on deep levels, you can have a neediness. They don't have healthy boundaries, so that Leo gets needy, 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 needy. You can have extremes of depression with creativity, wanting to cling to the creative past. You know, I did really good in my 20s and 30s with developing something, and it's run past its course, but I am still trying to cling to it. And the universe will have to do one of those 12th house dissolving the past to have you moving forward creatively. There can be what we call lost childhoods. There can be such wounding too. And again, the 12th house, 6th house, Pisces, Virgo, archetypes. This is where we carry all the distortions of the patriarchy, all of the religious distortions. And so that's what we're looking at right here. So if there was deep wounding to the self, there can be lost childhood. They don't have memory of childhood. And because that 12th house contains all houses that came before it, this can be par excellence on wearing the masks. And they can wear every single mask there is, to the point that we can have multiple personalities here. because there's no identity with who they truly are. And that's what Jupiter in Leo is going to start opening up these wounds to go back and recover the lost childhood, the wounded childhood, to go back and create that sense of self. Pluto in Capricorn's in the 5th house. There's going to be that crisis over grounding Capricorn, that sense of self. Chiron in Pisces in the 7th, there's going to be that danger of always wanting to adopt another mask or give somebody else the power to tell us who we are and who we can be. And this could be taking place, again, on very subtle levels. And this could be taking place on deep, deep levels, to the extent that you do have a multiple personality. Now, if we look at this in the natural expressions of this signature, this is where we can have some of the most gifted healers and mystics. These are people who have a deep sense of self, healthy boundaries, and in addition to that, they have a deep interconnectedness to Source. Before we found the outer planets with telescopes, before we recognized the 3 outer planets of ruling the unconsciousness, Jupiter ruled Pisces. Jupiter's the old ruler of Pisces. So Jupiter is conscious beliefs. 12th house is our unconscious beliefs on deepest levels. There is a connection to source energy here. And so when we have that healthy psyche, a healthy sense of self and ego with Leo, then Jupiter becomes gifted with its intuition. And it becomes that healer and mystic who can do the Reiki and the laying on of the hands. Source energy really can travel through them. They become charismatic leaders. These could be people who were child psychics. They see the true creative potential within their self. They're real. They're in the Jupiter honesty and truth about it. They see it in others. And as they are a creative channel for source, again, I'm not talking about this in the patriarchal sense where there is no healthy boundary. I'm talking about it in co-creating with source. There's a healthy psyche, healthy identity. And they're not overinflating their powers or sense of healing abilities. Nor are they underinflating it. There's a continual balancing of being able to hold that healthy, creative energy. They're not giving their power away to others with Chiron in the 7th. They are looking to co-create with source energy on some of the healthiest levels possible. Now there will again be degrees of this. So somebody who has a stable sense of self and psyche could be recognizing subtle ways in which they've given their power away to others, and they make the effort to stop doing that and say, hey, I'm a creative channel for source, not other needy people. They hold healthy boundaries with Chiron Pisces 7th, others who may wanting to project onto them and enmesh with them. They won't allow it to happen. And Pluto in that 5th house Capricorn, they could also then hold healthy boundaries with anybody else who sees them as a creative resource for whatever they don't want to do themselves. And if they're not wanting, if this Pluto or Jupiter in Leo 12th house transit is not wanting to do their own creative work, they don't want to be real in the world about what they can and cannot do, they can lose this creative channel. And that'll be the inconjunct if they're either not wanting to do the work, or they're getting egotistical and abusing any sense of power or creativity, it'll be taken away somehow. They'll lose the intuition. They'll lose the psychic abilities. There's that yod's going to hold this balance of healthy boundaries with one's own ego and with other beings and with source energy. All right, I have made it around the zodiac with these archetypes. I find it more fulfilling to go through all the 12 archetypes for those of you who are aspiring to be astrologers, rather than picking one or two houses with chart example and everybody else goes, what about me? I hope you like the teaching in this manner. I would be willing, if anybody wants to give me feedback on how they feel about this. You could even take these Jupiter examples and in many ways, as you're expanding your own intuition, take the Leo out of it, and this is still going to be true in many ways for Jupiter moving through the 12 houses. So I hope this is quite helpful for all of you. And are there final questions, comments, Leroy?
Nope. Very nice job,
Nope,
though.
very nice job, though.
All right. If there's something, Jupiter and Leo is a unique class to teach. It's a very nice class to teach because it takes a year to go through a sign. And so it's right about, it's a good time span where we can grasp it. Isn't it so interesting as Jupiter is asking us, that growth and evolution and intuition principle, here we are getting able to practice it. So as closing comments, review your life 12 years ago when Jupiter was last in Cancer. What have you healed in the last year on emotional levels, on inner early nurturing environment levels? Where were you when Jupiter was in Leo 12 years ago? And how has that evolved, recycled, spiraled around, and how are you going to embark upon evolving that deep authentic self and that deep inner self-love that is then going to make you a creative channel for source in whatever house Jupiter's transiting through? All right, everyone, I hope that this has been most helpful for you. Thank you very much for participating with me and Leroy in 4 hours of classing and 4 hours of classes. And we will have the PDFs as well as video and audio links out to you very shortly in the next day or so. And I do have, here's my final slide I wanted to show. It takes courage to grow up and become who you truly are. May you all be successful with it. And if you'd like, I'm going to have one more class next week, July 28th. We're going to look at Uranus retrograde in Aries. All right, everyone. Thank you very, very much.